Hey Slingers, welcome back to another Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to be talking a little bit about, let's just say some process, some writing related stuff. So if you're into that, stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger, and I'm very happy that you're here. This is I'm stumbling through the morning this morning because this has been an interesting week. So I took Kara to the airport a few days ago now, and actually it was on Tuesday. This is Thursday, so a couple of days ago, and so that's been me and the dog for the past few days, which has worked out great, in a lot of ways. And I'm going to talk about one of those in just a moment, the sort of the reason for the episode, but just some personal stuff, like to just fill you in. So with her gone, it's up to me to make sure that our dog is in good mental health, which is a little more challenging than you might think. She's a tiny little dog. She loves her mama. She typically spends all day with Kara in the little space that Kara uses as a kind of workspace. And so she only comes up here when she needs something. So she comes up here when she needs to go out, when she needs a meal, when she wants a snack. And then I've noticed, and I think this is true of her, that she comes up here when she wants a little loving. She wants some rubs under her chin, and she wants, maybe even snuggle with her for a few minutes in a chair. And I like to take naps at lunch, and she likes to sit up next to me. And I have a blue chair off to my right here that is not the most comfortable chair for napping in, I'll be honest, but it works out because I don't get so comfortable that I don't get up after 20 or 30 minutes. But she likes to wedge herself right between me and the arm of the chair. The chair is not very big. It's a very small, like blue velvety kind of chair. And she likes to get right wedged in between my leg and the side of the arm of the chair, and which means that I can't get any more comfortable than I am sitting there. But anyway, all that to say, Minnie has a fear of storms, and so when there's a lot of lightning and thunder, she gets kind of cowardly. And at least I always thought that. Now, what I noticed was when it's just me and her, she's chill. So when it's me and her and Kara, or when it's her and Kara, she starts shaking and she can't seem to rest. She can't seem to find peace. She gets, she always sleeps with us in our bed, and so she gets out from under the covers and for some reason and lays on top of the covers and just sort of paces and threatens to kind of jump down, and so it's a constant thing. And so I was expecting that yesterday, and the storm kind of rolled in while she and I were just kind of sitting on the couch at the end of the evening. I was watching some TV. She got right beside me under the blanket. She likes to snuggle in, but it was interesting because she didn't react at all to the thunder. Now, she wouldn't go outside when it was time to go to bed. I usually take her out one last time. But she wouldn't do that because it was raining, and she doesn't like the rain, and it was thunder and lightning. She definitely doesn't like that. But then I kind of expected we were going to have a rough night. So we go to bed. She kind of plants herself right next to my hip each night. And then somewhere in the night, she wanders away. Now, I don't move around much when I sleep. I pretty much sleep on my back the whole night, maybe on my side occasionally. So I don't do a lot of moving, and so I don't think I disturbed her. But I woke up and I could not find her, and she, I thought she must have gotten nervous in the storm, gotten up, jumped down when I wasn't, paying attention, and so I got up, turned on the lamp, started looking for her, started calling for her, and here she comes out from under the covers. So I don't know how she was hiding from me, but she was. But anyway, since the rain had stopped, I decided, well, we'll just take you out. Since I didn't get to take you out at bedtime, took her out at like 2:30 in the morning. Okay, so that's the setup, and then on top of that, for some reason, the past few days, at 5 a.m. every morning, an alarm goes off on my phone, and I don't have an alarm set on my phone. So this morning I was kind of waiting for it. Now I get up around that time anyway, but it's just sort of annoying. This music starts. I keep my phone in a drawer at night. I don't use it as my clock when I'm not traveling. I use it as a clock when I travel. But I think I've got it figured out. I think it was the health app. So if you've been having this problem, Apple has a health app where you can set up your sleep schedule. And I never did that, but I started using the health app. I sort of reformatted my phone recently, and when I reactivated the health app for tracking my steps when I walk, I think it turned that feature on by default. And so at 5 a.m. it goes off. So I've turned that off. So we're gonna see 5 a.m. tomorrow. We'll see whether that helped. But if it doesn't, and you know what's causing that, please let me know, because there is no alarm set for 5 a.m. And it doesn't bother me because, like I said, I'm up at around that time anyway. In fact, sometimes I get up, sometimes I get up around 4:30, but usually sometime between 5 and 5:30 I get up. So it doesn't really bother me that it goes off, and it's not obnoxious or intrusive. It's just there. But all that to say, so it was kind of a rough early morning, / night or whatever. Not really, but there was a lot going on, and it's just been a busy few days. But the thing is, with Kara gone this week, my schedule is a little more flexible than it usually is during the day, because typically around 10:30 or so, Minnie comes to tell me it's her lunchtime, and I wander down because that's around my lunchtime too. And then Kara and I do lunch together. And the only downside to both of us working from home full time is that in the middle of the day, that's our time to hang out and chat. And so lunch tends to be long, an hour to 2 hours sometimes, depending on what things. And that drives me a little nuts because I the whole time I'm thinking about the book I'm working on. I'm thinking about the work. And so I get a little anxious and stressed about it. I'm learning how to deal with that. And I think this is important. This is like a life lesson kind of thing. I think it's important to make time for the people in your life. That's a given. It's also important for you to realize, I think, this is me. This is the lesson I'm taking out of this. It's important to realize that that work is still going to be there, but this moment that you have with somebody isn't. And so, us sitting and taking time in the middle of the day to have lunch together and chat, which is, admittedly, mostly me nodding and listening while Kara chats. Don't, if you're listening, baby, I'm sorry. It's true though. But anyway, it's time together. It's important time together. It's also important to just sometimes it's important to just, force yourself to walk away from the work for a little while so that when you come back to it, you come back refreshed with a new perspective. Now, like I said, I'll take a quick nap after lunch. I usually need it, just a snooze, 20 to 30 minutes at the most. It's almost meditative. It's almost less of a nap and more like a meditation. But I am sleeping. But, I make sure that I'm sleeping in such a way that I'm not going to zonk out for several hours. It's usually less than half an hour. It's good. It's good refresh time. And then I sit back down and I do more writing. So that's kind of my routine. So I get up around 5 a.m., take the dog out, shower, do all my morning S's. I make coffee for me and Kara, and I empty the dishwasher. Those are my primary tasks in the morning. Then I'll take a walk, usually 30 to 45 minutes. There's a nice walking path around my neighborhood, goes through some wooded areas, goes around a nice pond. Sometimes I'll walk over and I'll take a seat at this bench that overlooks this pond where the ducks are, and it's more meditative. But I get in some exercise and some quiet time, and then when I get back, it's I sit at this desk usually. I pick up I have a morning journal. If you're watching on YouTube, this is my modified leather Moleskine journal. And I do my 3 pieces of wisdom and then my 3 gratitudes. And then I free write in that thing for, to fill the page about anything that's on my mind. And then it's time to start the writing. Now I kind of break things up with, I like YouTube videos, especially the quick ones, just to kind of get my head out of, I want to relax a little, a quick sort of hit, basically. Nothing too distracting and nothing too engaging, but a couple of quick videos to just a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes at the most, to just kind of chill. Get my head in the right space, and then I dive in and I write. And over the years, my writing goals, my writing target has changed from time to time. Here's what I'm learning about that, because at first, for years, and I wrote a book called 30-Day Author that talks about a writing process that was mine for a long time, and it hasn't changed significantly. A lot of the same stuff is happening there, the journaling and all that. I'm now incorporating more of the contemplation, the meditative thought about the writing as part of the writing process. That whole nap time thing is part of that, honestly. The walk in the morning is part of that. The journal is part of that. And it's all about kind of funneling my energy into this process. And what I'll do, over the years, the target has changed. So, for a while I was doing 10,000 words a day, 5,000 words, 2,000 words. It's generally around 2,000 words is what my general target is word-wise. And then sometimes it's the time. Well, I'm going to spend 2 hours. I'm going to spend 4 hours. I'm going to do 6 hours. What I've discovered is this, and I think this is an important lesson for writers, and really, I think anybody. I think any creative work, I think any deep focus work, this is a good rule. Your goal for that work on a day-to-day basis needs to be flexible. It needs to be disciplined, but there needs to be flexibility in the discipline. So, for example, when I'm traveling, going to conferences, especially if I go overseas to a conference, it disrupts my whole day. My whole schedule, my whole routine. But there's still these key touchstones that I know that I need to accomplish. I know that I need to write in this journal. That's going to be part of it. I know that I need to do a Bible study as part of my daily routine. Read some scripture, do some prayer. I pray continuously, so the prayer part is a little different, but the reading scripture and contemplating that and sort of following. I have an app I use, the Bible app, to help guide me in that. The journaling is important. It's changed over time. What journals I focus on. Sometimes I add something for a while, take something away. Sometimes I'm reading, in the mornings I read philosophy and I make some notations about that. But then there's days where, or long stretches where that's not the routine. There's just, as long as you have these touchstones that you come back to as part of your discipline, that's the part that matters. And I think coming back to it daily is what matters. There is something to be said for taking a rest. Biblically they talk about a Sabbath, and I think the older I get, the more I'm starting to understand that. It's just allowing yourself to have a day where there's no obligations on you. There's no pressure on you. I think that organized religion tended to take that a little too far. Because scripturally it said to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, which means Whenever you see them reference something, say that it's holy, it means set apart. It's special because it's set apart. And remembering the Sabbath, which was, doctrinally, I'm probably all over the map here, but my interpretation of this right now is that, there's this moment of rest. There's a rhythm to life, and part of that rhythm includes taking a beat to rest, and setting that apart as something sacred. And so that's what you need to do. You need to find those beats where you just chill, whether you're religious or not, whether you're Christian or not. That is actually the rhythm of our actual lives. If we have moments where the only way that we're going to be more productive is if we are less productive. And so part of that is this idea of being flexible about how we approach our discipline, because it matters more that you have the discipline than that you hit your target every time.
Hey, it's Kevin Tumlinson here, and I want to talk to you about something that's made a real difference in my work over the years, and that is Pro Writing Aid. I've been using this for years. It's hands down the best assistive editing tool that I've found. And what I love most is that it works wherever I write. So whether I'm in Scrivener, Microsoft Word, Substack, or anywhere else, Pro Writing Aid is right there with me. And unlike other tools, I get control over the kind of suggestions it gives me. So there's no rigid rules. It's just smart, actionable feedback that's tailored to my writing. And the best part is that the team behind Pro Writing Aid actually cares about independent writers and creators. They're focused on helping individual creators like you and me, not just big enterprise customers. And that is unfortunately becoming a kind of rare thing these days. And that's why I'm proud to support them. So if you're serious about leveling up your writing wherever or however you write, go to prowritingaid.com and use the code KEVIN20 at checkout for 20% off of your subscription. That's prowritingaid.com, code KEVIN20. And trust me, you'll be glad you did.
And I think that's an important distinction. It matters more. So I'm just going to talk about this from the perspective of writers, because that's what I am, and that's mostly who you are, I know. So writing advice for you. You want to have a recurring discipline, and maybe your life doesn't allow for daily writing. I think, though, that everyone's life can allow for some component of writing, because like I said, some of writing is this contemplative, meditative portion. So you're thinking about the writing, you're taking time to breathe through it. You take a walk, you're taking a drive to work, you're making lunches for the kids, you're doing something, you're taking a shower. Part of that is your writing process. It's that contemplation that's very important. So don't discount that. It's part of your discipline. So maybe, when you get up in the morning and you're taking your dog out, that few moments of quiet, while they're out in the yard doing their business, your discipline is to think about the book or think about the writing. Then there is the actual discipline of writing. And I'm going to just confess that it's going to go a lot smoother for you if you are coming back to it daily. But even if your writing schedule is, I can throw two hours every 2 days into this, every couple of days I can write for 2 hours, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, or something along those lines. I can write for 2 hours. I can write for 4 hours on Saturday. Whatever that is, you do need to commit to that. You need to commit to producing in the time in a scheduled manner, because that's where the discipline comes in, and that's how you make progress. So all that to say, I know it's going to be different for everybody. The approach is going to be different for everyone, and the necessity is going to be different for everyone. But if you want a career in this, the discipline is necessary. The habit, the repetition, coming back to it. It's just that I don't think that it's necessary to say every single day I have to write 2,000 words. If you've got a goal and a deadline, that's how you meet your deadline. You say, I've got 30 days to write 60,000 words. So I have to write, 17,000 words a day. Or if I, 17,000 words. No, that's not right. 17,000 words, 1,700 words a day. So if you commit to writing 2,000 words a day, you're going to beat your deadline. That's just math. So if you've got a deadline that we're working against, you need to be disciplined enough to do what it takes. However, if your deadline is wide enough, like say, I've got 1 year to write this book, don't dumb down your process and stretch it out, because that's a couple hundred words a day or something for a year. Go ahead and commit to, I'm going to aim to do 2,000 words a day, but I'm going to be flexible, right? Because I've got more time. Give yourself the grace of having that extra time, but do approach it with discipline. I'm going to come back and write every day, even if I only get a couple hundred words a day, even if I manage to do 10,000 words in one day, but I only do, 100 words the next day. Because that progress, it's going to be healthy for you. It's going to get the book done, and it's going to, it's going to make you stronger as a person. So here's what's happening for me right now. So with Kara out of town, I've had a couple of days where I didn't have that couple of hours of having lunch with her in the middle of the day, and so I just poured that right back into the writing, and I'm editing the manuscript that I'm doing with J.D. Barker right now based on the feedback he gave me. And so I've gotten to a point now where I am able. I've finished those edits, and now I'm starting on one final pass through, because I want to make sure the book is tight. I want to make sure that, because a lot of the edits he came back with, he and his editor, required me to add some things, change some things about characters, about events, took some scenes out, put some new scenes in. So I want to make sure that it's all cohesive and gels together. So as much as I'd love to hand that book over right now, because it's done, and technically, it's not yet done because it needs that one final pass. And there's where some of that flexibility comes in. Here's something that I've learned from this process, because I've talked about this a lot in past episodes. It's come up a lot in other interviews and things I've done for other podcasts. This process with JD has been different for me. Because it involves an outlining, which is something I never really did, and it involves kind of working to his process, which I'm not used to. I'm going to go ahead and say that this book is now the new baseline standard that I have to meet for every book I do going forward. I struggled through a lot of this, but because of that struggle, I learned some things, grew in some ways that have made it progressively easier to approach, and have gotten me back to the discipline I had before. Now I may or may not do a steady 2,000 words a day of writing, because the process for this book has been a little different. Writing a first draft of it, I think I could do that for most books. But, a lot of this book, the writing involved with a lot of this book has come around to, rather than adding 2,000 words a day or trying to write 2,000 words a day, or 5,000 or whatever, it's now about shaping what's there. And so it's not a word count thing, and it's not a time thing. I can't say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day editing. It's not that either. There's been days where I spent an hour on it, and that was as much as I could manage because I needed to figure some things out. And that's what I'm talking about with this, take a beat to rest and meditate. Each day you should be taking some time to think about the book. This is a thinking process. We tend to approach it as a purely mechanical process. That's the mistake I think I made for years, and that's what burned me out. Because my solution to the problems of a book was to plow through and get it done, force myself to tell the story and get it over with. And I think in many ways, and I love my books, and I think some of them are amazing. I get a lot of great feedback. I get a lot of great reviews on my books. But I look back and think, if I had known then and applied then what I have in my repertoire now, how much greater could that body of work have become? And I think a great deal. So that's what I wanted to tell you today. I mean, I want you to think about whatever work you're doing. And if you're a writer, this is definitely applicable, but any creative work, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is you're doing, I think that there is room to breathe in all your work. You don't have to force yourself to constantly move forward. Sometimes you accomplish more by standing still, and that is the point. So, that said, short, quick episode today. So I hope you got something useful and moving and poignant out of it. I'm looking forward to, the book is, as of yesterday, all the edits are done, and now I'm just looping back for the entire manuscript to make sure that everything's in line, make sure that all the things that I paid off later were set up the way I wanted them to be early in the book, and just, make the book the best possible book it can be. And then we're off to the races, and I'll get whatever additional feedback, and I'll implement that, and so this could happen a few more times, but that's the sort of burden of producing work like this, but it's also the joy of it. So don't forget that part. Don't forget that there's joy in doing this. This is the work you wanted to do, right? So stop thinking about the end result. Stop thinking about the paydays and the movie deals and the reviews, what it's going to look like on your shelf. Stop thinking about all that and keep yourself right here and now, right focused on the joy of creating this thing. And that comes not just from, pounding your fingertips on a keyboard or scribbling on a page with a pen or pencil. It also comes from those moments of quiet, the solitude of contemplation, that are required. This is like playing music, and sometimes there's beats between the notes. So remember to play those too. So anyway, take care of yourself out there. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and all those things that are required of us out here in the digital landscape. And leave me some comments, feedback. You can go to wordslingerpodcast.com where you can find past episodes. You can find it on the YouTube channel as well. But if you're not a YouTube person the way I am, if you prefer the audio podcast or something, or if you're tuning in via Substack on the Wordslinger podcast Substack page, you can drop me a line from any of those places. But wordslingerpodcast.com, that'll bring it all together for you. So hope that you are doing well. God bless you. Take care of yourself, and I will see you next time.
Wordslinger.